Guys. Are you there? Did you make it? Are you here? Is it just me? I think Mikey's on his way in. I'll let him in just a second. I always get an earworm stuck in my head. Today it's up in smoke. That's where my money goes. In my lungs and sometimes up my nose. When troubled times begin to worry me, I take the toke and all my cares go up in smoke. Come on, everybody, let's go get high. Who was that? Like Bob Dylan, wasn't it? I don't know. It's on Cheech and Chong movie. Make sure I'm sending the invite. Yeah, Mikey's got it, so he should be in here in just a second. See if he can log in. We'll have a few things to talk about today. I'm going to check up on his vacation. I had a wonderful one. Coffee. We'll always be talking about coffee. Do you guys have any coffee questions you want me to pose for Mike? He's a bit of an aficionado. Or at least he likes his coffee. Sorry, guys. We'll get there in just a second. Hi, Lily. Thanks for watching. Sorry, the first few minutes are boring. Usually until we get to 4 p.m. That's when everybody gets logged in. Says I've got bad signal. That stinks. That's how live works, though. You don't get an opportunity to do it a different way. So let's see if I can hook up to the Wi-Fi. Hey, there he is. Hey, there you are.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
My reception better now?
I think so. I wanted to get some my thing here a little bit. How we looking?
Well, since I'm in this office, I'll show you. You can get yourself set up there. Things are not always as pretty as they appear, right? We got the beautiful artwork behind me. My office is a mess. We just moved everything.
All that flooding?
No, this is my personal office. That was the Lake Board office. This is because we had to repaint the walls. So we just moved here. So it looks a little messy, but we're getting it on point. Anyway, how was your holidays?
They were good, man. They were good. We went up to Detroit. We drove up there. Thankfully that we drove up there, we bypassed a lot of the issues with
flying,
Southwest Airlines and all that flight stuff and people losing their bags for months and whatever else. And so we drove up there because we took the dog with us. So it was the first road trip for Winston, our Frenchie, which was great. We had a great time. But yeah, I think we got lucky by driving him up there because we didn't have to worry about any flight stuff. So that was pretty good that we made that decision. Even though it's a long drive, we stopped, but whatever. So how was your holiday, man? What did you do?
I flew Southwest, but I flew them 2.5 weeks ago and made it to the Dominican Republic and back. Whenever you get a random check, right, and they're going to have you get sniffed by the drug dogs or the bomb dogs or whatever, it never feels so random when it's you.
Yeah.
But I made it there and back. It was fun.
Yeah. What
Yeah,
do I look
it
like?
was.
What I got a hat on says NORML, the National Organization of Reformation of Marijuana Laws. You
Mm-hmm.
know, maybe that would single you out, or maybe if you have like a big pot leaf
Yeah, I don't
on
know.
your whatever. But hey, that's the way it is, man. So,
That
but
was
yeah,
that.
I guess we'll go ahead and kick this off today.
Yeah. Welcome. If you guys are
Welcome,
watching out there,
everybody.
thanks for joining us.
Yes. I am Michael Rizika, and I am the president of the Southern Gateway Association of Realtors down here in Jefferson County, Missouri. I've been a realtor since 2007, so I'm going on what is that, 16 years. 16 years. I'm not good at math, so it's 16 years I've been doing this gig. So above me, I got my friend
Cricket.
Cricket.
Yep, Cricket Staggs. So immediate past president of the Lake of the Ozarks Board of Realtors.
Yeah.
So been at this since 2017, not as long as Mikey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I met Cricket. He was in our Leadership Academy class, the best class, 2022, and we met about a year and a half ago, and we just kicked. From there, friendship grew and everything else. So we hit off the banter. We have a lot of different views on things, which is great. And this is one of the reasons why we put this podcast together, is our ponds and pools. So it works out pretty good, man.
That's exactly right. So
Yeah.
you said you went up north. I happen to know that Michigan is one of the states. There's only 10 states in the United States now that don't have some type of medical or recreational marijuana law, right?
Exactly.
I know Michigan's one of them, right?
Yeah, Michigan is one of them. Actually, 36 states, and all 4 of the territories have some sort of legalization, or medical or recreational. So 36 states. And, Missouri just passed that Amendment 3 by 53 to 47% back in November. So yeah, the legalization is coming here, besides the medical portion of it as well. But the funny thing is, Cricket, you're right. We did, when I was telling you that we drove up there, we were coming in through downtown Detroit. And if anybody's been through Michigan and Detroit, it's pretty rough area now, since the loss of the car industry and everything that's happened over the last few years. But one of the good things that's happening in Detroit is the legalization of marijuana. So when we were driving through, I was seeing one after the other these billboards for these new dispensaries that are popping up.
Right.
And it is a really good thing, because you're seeing some of these dispensaries that are popping up in some of these areas that are kind of blighted, and they're bringing back in business, and they're bringing back in jobs to these areas, which is an amazing thing. It really is. And so we were just driving through downtown Detroit, and where we were at, we were outside of Detroit a little bit in one of the townships, and they have the dispensaries all through there too. So you can't go more than 2 or 3 miles, or maybe a little bit more. It's a big city, without finding yourself a dispensary. And it really is a growing thing throughout the United States. Did Missouri? What's the history of Missouri and their cannabis laws, and what's been going on with that?
So one important thing to point out is that when Missouri decided to go into making or deciding on laws, what they did is they decided on, there's several ways you can do it, right? They decided on making an amendment to our Constitution. So what that did is that made anybody who is a medical patient, once they decided on the wording, the first thing they did in 2018, they made anybody who a doctor states needs medical marijuana for any purpose whatsoever, that they're allowed to have the license, right? So that made an amendment. What happened is that the governor issued a state of emergency address, and they said, we don't have the infrastructure and the ability to handle this now requirement of the law that says that we have to at least allow them access to this, right? So they had to immediately, what he did was he issued that state of emergency address, and he said, within the next 60 days, I need something in front of me that explains how we're going to move forward with allowing this licensing and such. So it's things like you log into a website, they assigned it to the Division of Health and Senior Services. So DHSS is the one that's in charge of originally the medical marijuana. All of that is, I'm explaining that just to explain that that's the exact same thing thing they did with recreational, and now recreational, they have 60 days as well, which makes, I believe, February 6th or 8th or something is when they have to put something on the governor's desk that gives the state a way forward with allowing recreational dispensaries to move forward, to license, things like that, for people to be able to, I think the new law explains that anybody over 21 years of age is allowed to have so much cannabis. It's again it's not just decriminalizing, it is making it illegal to prosecute them on a state level. So remember, that's the weird thing, because as you know, the federal government still has laws that say that it's illegal, and that really muddies the water, really makes things complex. So for example, in the state of Kansas, where there's no laws whatsoever that protect somebody who is a medical patient, for example, in Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, is illegal and could be arrested and sentenced to jail time in Kansas City, Kansas, for the exact same possession, which is a weird thing, right? And then of course, what it matters to us, right, is how's that affect our real estate market? Are there any statistics that anybody's been able to look up over the past 24 to 48 hours that lay all that out for us?
Unbelievable that you asked me about statistics.
Let me tell you, before you
what's that?
Before you mention statistics, the first thing I would point out is that logically, people might say, especially if they don't understand our market, right? They would say, well, having a dispensary or just legalizing it in the state, that's going to bring the market values in the state down, isn't it? And I don't know why people initially ask that, because the statistics might show something different. And I think that's what you're getting ready to tell us.
Yeah, basically what it comes down to is the money doesn't lie. Right. The money does not lie in the cannabis industry. And so basically, like you were talking about, since 2020, when the medical marijuana was launched in Missouri, their first year of sales of 2020 was $210 million, right, just in marijuana sales. But that does not include all the supporting aspects of that as well. And we have that document. I sent you that document earlier. Not only has it been that, but since 2021, it's created 6,900 jobs, right, $804 million in direct economic impact. That's not just the sales wise, but that's right, for the buildings, for the land, for everything that's included to create these dispensaries, to create these grow houses and everything else.
All the way down to the economic impact of people that are working there, building that stuff, buying the groceries while they're living there and all that.
Right, because the people that got these jobs that are working at the dispensary still need housing. They still need food. Just because they're working at a dispensary doesn't make them not human. They still need to go buy stuff. So with the money that is made off of the sales of the cannabis that pays their bill, that pays their salary, they have to go out and get housing and things like that. And since 2022, last year alone, we had $380 million worth of cannabis sales in the state of Missouri. So, like I said, it trickles down. So people are seeing this, and values are in these areas are not going down because of dispensaries. They're actually going up. And data shows that as well. And there was a statistic out from the National Association of Realtors that they haven't seen any slowdown at all on any type right, of value because of the dispensaries in whatever area. Of course, the further you get away from the dispensary, it's not going to be as plentiful, but right, they have not seen any slowdown or anything else because of the marijuana in the areas and the dispensaries in the area.
And to define that, when you say NAR, of course, anytime somebody references a study, it's nice to know exactly how that comes about, right? So NAR, the studies that you had sent over to me that we were kind of looking back and forth through, I read through some of their statistics, and what they pointed out was that the studies they did were studies of NAR members. There's 1.5 million of us. We're the largest trade association in the United States. So they went and surveyed a large portion of us, and we responded to these surveys and answered questions. We responded in areas, they defined it, they separated out into areas, not just areas that have legalization, but areas that have had legalization recently and areas that have had legalization for a while. Hi, Rocky. Thanks for checking in, man. If you got a question, hit us up.
Yeah. Hey, Rocky, how are you, buddy?
Rocky's one of our fellow realtors, or former realtor, I believe, or retired realtor from Nebraska. He's a lake house owner.
Nice,
So,
nice.
are,
Yeah, give us a shout out if you're out there watching us. Hit us with some questions. Let us know where you're at. Anything else that you would have. So
well,
kind of getting back to that cricket. Are you going to see any problems with your property if you live around a dispensary? And I'm going to say no.
Well,
Whatsoever.
and that's the question. That's the question generally, and even on a specific level, right? The people that they had quizzed from NAR, they came back. What was it? They said in states where prescription recreational marijuana is used, 35 to 36% of members have seen increased demand in warehouses, increased demand in storefronts. So, I mean, so you can blame some of that on COVID, but not all
Yeah.
of it. And if you go to those same states where they have not legalized, there's a decrease in that demand because people are closing up their businesses there and moving to states where it's easier to operate for whatever reason. And that's what NAR is trying to indicate. So what you think is, well, is the dispensary is it gonna increase or decrease the value of my home? Well, I mean, we've got statistical analysis of that already, and it's coming, I mean, in spades.
Yeah.
There's no
No.
negatives.
No. Unless you have a personal problem with it. If you have a
Well,
personal, if somebody would have a personal problem, not being interested. Oh,
let's
it's they used to call it the devil's lettuce. So if
let's talk
somebody has a
about that.
problem with that,
Let's talk about that. And I think you set a good example earlier this week. Let's talk about that because I think that there was a time and place where the same would be said about gambling, right?
right?
And it's something that we do on the daily now. And of course, lottery and stuff like that wasn't around in the 70s. And my point, of course, is that I think it was you that shared on Facebook the other day that Pete Rose just was the first person to place a sports bet legally in his state, and didn't he get barred from ever being in the Hall of Fame or whatever? It was a frustrating event for the point of my jabber here is that sometimes it's culture and convention that change, not the product, not the thing, right? So
Right.
if we were to dispel myths about cannabis, one of the things we could dispel about, for example, not calling it marijuana, calling it cannabis, right? One of the myths that we could dispel is that it's a problem for people, it's a problem for society, it's a problem for associations, it's a problem for memberships, it's a problem for the parking lot, right? There's so many other ways that people consume cannabis now that the actual raw plant that tends to be what people get physically bothered by isn't as
Mm-hmm.
prevalent. And of course, dispelling the myth is the main thing, right?
Yeah, I guess when you're talking about that, since it is going to be legal in the state of Missouri, and you see people, and for people that know me, I'm a non-drinker. Okay, so I
Right.
haven't drank since 2016. I have whatever my feelings about that, but you're right. We're going to have to break that snafu about weed. People like, I had such a hard day. I'm going to go home and drink this bottle of Chardonnay, having it,
Mm-hmm.
doing everything else like that. Eventually, it's going to be like, hey, I had a bad day. I'm going to go do 5 bong rips and take a nap. And I think people need to start getting around that and saying, hey, you know what? Pot's legal now. If you have an issue with it, because I don't have an issue with anybody that drinks. I have absolutely no, drink away. I drank for 30 something years and I just quit, So if my decision is to have cannabis versus a bottle of wine on a Friday night, that should be my personal decision to do that and not be like,
Yeah.
oh, he smokes weed. There's something wrong with him. No, come on. I'd rather
Well,
smoke than drink any day, but that's my own personal feeling.
right. Well, dispelling myths is kind of what this conversation is about. But at the same time, I don't think we're going to necessarily dispel myths in any individual conversation. But the more that we share and discuss and talk about it, the more that we realize. For example, if anybody watches this video and didn't know that it's a constitutional amendment, so it's someone's constitutional right now to be able to consume cannabis, then it's just a matter of talking about what the annoyances are. For example, in the subdivision, right? Subdivision says you get quiet enjoyment of the property, right?
Mm-hmm.
Quiet enjoyment may mean that the next door neighbor smoking out with it blowing right into your back door is not necessarily going to be helpful, and it is going to cause an argument between HOAs, or between members in an HOA and things like that. It'll be more and more prevalent the more that these things come along, and it'll be HOA conversations that haven't been had before, and whether or not people are allowed to grow openly in their backyard and things like that, based on what these laws are, which Missouri we won't find out until February 6th. So, of course, the question is it going to make a difference in my neighborhood if the guy back there is growing a copious amount of ganja in his backyard, right? And I
Right.
don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see. You can go to California, you can go to Colorado, you can go to lots of other states where people have been doing it for years, and it's a no big deal kind of thing, right?
Right. And you know, and I guess for the cannabis user, when they do legalize it for recreational purposes, the prices will come down, because I did look at the prices of the cannabis they have in Missouri versus what they have in Michigan, and it's like night and day. And
Yep.
also with the you know, you kind of circled onto it a little bit earlier about the federal, you know, it's still federally illegal. And
Yep.
I don't know if you were aware of this, but in April of 2021, they passed a law called the Secure and Fair Enforcement Banking Act of 2021. Right. And what that does is that takes off penalties for businesses to be able to put their money that has been generated by legal dispensaries in the bank. And so they don't get penalized for it and things like that. So I think once they open it up federally, and once that federal is lifted, you're going to see prices go down, and you're going to see a lot of issues with banking go away too, because of the FDIC.
And it's my understanding that banking in particular, that's kind of what they've done there, is a patch on a wall, right? And there needs to be a full fix, which would be just to reschedule the drug. On a federal level, it's a schedule, whatever, C narcotic or whatever, which means that it's on the same level as like cocaine and heroin. There's no medical use for it on a federal level, and that it's highly addictive and dangerous and could kill you, I think, are some of the criteria to be on that schedule. And it's clearly just shouldn't be on that schedule. So they need to fix that on a federal level. Everything else gets fixed.
Right. And then that opens up that fair trade, because I think we mentioned it once before that cannabis that you sell in your state has to be grown and cultivated in your state. And so once they open that up, trade routes are going to be opening up, and there's going to be a lot more free market for the cannabis industry throughout the United States. And that, like you said, it all trickles down to the housing, because where there's money, housing, everything. So all this money is going to trickle down to the housing. So if you're worried about that in your particular area, reach out to Cricket and I and myself, and we can get you any kind of information that you would want. In regards to a house that's located near a grow field or a dispensary or whatever. You know what else is kind of funny? You talk about things that are really super addictive that can kill you. Something I consume on a daily basis: coffee. And with this cold weather, I could drink coffee all day long, and that's what I was doing up in Detroit, in my mother-in-law's house. And people have seen me before post about, I'm a coffee snob, so having a Keurig, I just didn't like that coffee. The problem with the Keurig is the fact that I can walk by that and get a cup of coffee at any time of the day. And I found myself drinking, 5-6 cups of coffee, in the afternoon after like 3 o'clock. And so I wasn't getting much sleep because I was drinking a lot of coffee. So I don't know, what's your take on that Keurig, man? I know you said something yesterday. You wanted to talk to me about coffee because I'm such a coffee snob.
I just got a new espresso machine. When we went to the DR, I didn't know many things to say in Spanish, but I knew how to order a café con leche, and that's a coffee with warm cream, and it's fantastic. The espresso machine, I've been able to make the same thing. Yeah. So that's exactly right. So I was raised with a Viper coffee machine, right? My dad was a coffee fanatic, and we had a Viper coffee machine at the car dealership that I worked at. And I don't know if you're aware or not, but there's 3 pastimes that most car salesmen have. And I didn't smoke, and I didn't tell lies, so I had drinking coffee. That's the 3, right? You smoke cigarettes, drinking coffee, and telling lies. So I drank lots of coffee, listened to lots of stories.
About
smoke cloud, smoke,
about them telling
smoker
lies.
circle. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Luckily.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's a great story, because my introduction to coffee was pretty much the U.S. Navy coffee, which comes in, I don't know, 15 or 25-pound tins. They also make this, they make this coffee in gallons and gallons. It's always available. So we were always drinking coffee because I worked on the flight deck at night. So we were drinking coffee, going to the gym and things like that. But, there's always a myth that, hey, they take this coffee after it's been sitting for a couple of days and use it to take paint off the bulkheads of the ship. So, because it is some pretty nasty coffee. And that's why now, one, I am a coffee snob, but there's pretty much, I'll drink any coffee because I've had probably the worst coffee in the history of coffee, which is Navy coffee. And now anything else that I drink is just, like top notch type coffee. So it's good.
Well, we're talking about coffee and we were talking about cannabis, and bear in mind, once they're both completely legal commodities, right? That's all they're really going to be, is a commodity. And if you think about it, do you know anybody that grows coffee, right? How do you procure the coffee beans? Yeah. So
you go to the store.
Right. That's one of the things that's been interesting to note regarding the cannabis industry and how it's going to be coming about, is that we've had this medical revolution in a lot of states, and now we're having a recreational revolution in a lot of states. And hopefully the federal government will wise up and just adjust the scheduling soon enough, and then it'll fix the problem, right? But then it's just going to be another, what is it, Marlboro or Camel, or it's a brand name thing, and you go scoop it up. You can already see that in the dispensaries now with the different brand names that are prevalent in each state, even though they can't be sold from state to state. That's weird. It still weirds me out.
It is pretty weird, and like you said, we're not going to know. We're not going to know for a little bit on how on some of the impacts of this is going to happen, but all signs point to positivity on all fronts for it, which is absolutely amazing.
Well, then here's the question I have for you. What pitfalls can you see that are unintended consequences of the illegal cannabis industry? And you think about it, I've got one already that I'm aware of. I'll use an example. In California, when recreational cannabis became legal, one of the things that conservation departments started having to do is a whole lot of policing of public areas, because people were growing cannabis everywhere. So you're not allowed to go onto public land, right? To go into I've got 6,000 acres not too far from my house, right? I can go all across there, planting pot, and just see what grows, I guess. So the conservation was having a huge problem with that. And what they found when they started investing money in it is that they would hunt down where, for example, someone would say, hey, there's a creek that's dried up that salmon used to run up it in Northern California here. And the conservation would go to study what's going on with this creek, and the creek would be completely dried up because someone had dammed it up. And what they had was foreign nationals bringing young people up here and planting them in the woods to do the job of growing hundreds of pounds of cannabis to sell to other states, right? So they were busting 15, 16-year-old kids that were Spanish-speaking kids and taking them back across the border, right? And the fine is $150. So it was a very minimal fine and deportation. So it's a very logical idea on behalf of the cartels, and a very frustrating thing for law enforcement, right? That, again, federal legalization might curb and fix.
Right. I guess the other pitfall, just like any other type of substance, is it falling into the hands of kids. Hey, I'm under 21. Hey, can you go buy me a pound of dank? Can you give me some weed? And
young, impressionable minds.
Exactly. It's exactly like with alcohol. Kids. I did it back in the 80s. Hey, man, can you go buy me some? Can you go buy me some booze so we can go hang out? It's going to be the same thing with marijuana in some aspects, maybe for some kids. I don't know. So,
well, luckily, personal responsibility, right?
What's that?
Luckily, personal responsibility, just like anything else. An automobile and the keys to an automobile can fall into a child's hands as well. You have to have a license to drive it.
Right. Yeah. So besides the coffee, man, I don't know if I have much more for this podcast this week. We can start wrapping it up and talking about what we're going to be doing in 2 weeks.
Well, we're at 25 minutes. We kind of covered a few things, which is it's not going to be as big of a detriment to our industry as people think it is. It's actually introducing quite a bit of opportunity in things like qualified opportunity zones, things like that in the commercial market. The
Yep.
commercial market is way up. The real estate overall aspect is positive, and there's not many negatives,
No.
but there are a few negatives. If you're curious as to what the negatives of the cannabis industry are, post your zip code and I will get you information about your particular zip code. And as a matter of fact, this ties into your offer earlier, Mike. If you have any questions about real estate and you are watching this podcast, you don't have to be anywhere near us for us to help you. If you have a zip code, send us your zip code. We will find the best human being with a real estate license in your area to answer your questions to the best of their ability. How's that?
And we'll also put both of our contact information in the comments too. So if you have a specific question, maybe you want to take it offline of myself or Cricket, feel free to send that over to us, direct message, however you want to do that, which is fine. So yeah, no downturn in because that money that's bringing in is absolutely amazing. Just look at Colorado. They have a surplus of money from when they did this years ago. And it just takes time and I said that back then, I go, it's just going to be a matter of time because all these other states are going to see in the money that they're making. And, of course, the dollar bills win every time. The cash wins.
Yep. Well, like I said, there's some things to watch out for you, but you got to, as long as you're careful in what you watch out for, there's like in our area, you have to identify if a home has ever had methamphetamines made in it. But you won't have to identify if it's ever been made into a grow operation. That might do detriment to the home in the form of mold and that type of thing, but it's not going to be near as hazardous as something like a meth house.
Right. And I know they're starting to have those discussions, and I know probably in some states they have on the seller's disclosure and the disclosures about the property, they will state in there, has this house ever been used for the cultivation of cannabis? Because of, like you said, the water, the mold, things like that. You're going to have extra electric, plumbing, all that stuff has to be done right if you really want to have a decent setup.
Yes, you're exactly right. I went to a place at the Lake of the Ozarks that had a fully automated grow room. It was fantastic. There was all sorts of cool stuff. But as you mentioned, things have to be done exactly right, and you can't half-ass it, pardon my French, when it comes to things like growing indoors and hydroponics and weird stuff like that. But it was really neat what that person had set up for themselves. And of course, that's the type of thing to keep an eye out for in our industry, which is really interesting. We are going to be at the business conference at the next get-together, right?
Yeah, we're going to be out in Kansas City on the 17th, 18th, and 19th for our annual January business conference. We get together with all the other professionals around the state.
Don't tell me we get together with all the other professionals around the state and get drunk as fools. No, hopefully not. Okay,
no,
we actually get together and talk about stuff.
We'll be talking about what we mentioned before about some of these events. They have all this wine and booze and all this stuff, but hey, what about the non-alcoholic guy that's there? So a lot of times I bring my own stash because you guys don't have it.
That's the common thing that I hear about business conferences from people that don't know what they are or haven't been to them is, oh, everybody gets together in parties. I'm not into that. Or everybody gets together in parties. I know what you guys do. And really, as you know, even the people that drink, nobody parties. We get together and learn more, teach more, educate more, and mainly operate and handle the business of running the largest trade association in the state of Missouri, which does take a lot of actual work and business.
Right. That is true,
you know, Mr. President.
Yeah, that is true. But, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There's a lot of schmoozing going on. There's a lot of shots that go on. And a lot of times the real business of what's going on between realtors and events and things like that happen at these schmoozing events. And, that's just part of it. If you want to get involved with it, that's great. If you don't, that's fine too. So we're going to leave off with that because we're going to segue when we're at this convention. We're going to do it. We're going to go live. And we're going to talk about the benefits of being at these type of events and what you can gather up from these events as well. And also because he'll have different takeaways from these events that I'll have. So we're going to do a counterpoint type of, hey, we went to this, we talked about that. What do you think about this? And what did you get from that? And so it's really going to be good. It's going to be really good.
Dustin knows what's up. That's business. That's right.
Business. Yeah. You still got to handle your business, but then you also, hey, man, you work hard, play hard. That's the old Navy way.
Well, I'm looking forward to the black tie event and the inauguration. It's always nice to go to an inauguration. And then, of course, we've got YPN's karaoke. Make sure you sign up for that. That's karaoke on a dare. So.
That one may be a game time decision if I decide to sign up for that one. And, you know, I got to get some people together to go to Andrea's installation event. That's going to be super fun too. So I'm looking forward to that. Seeing a few of other of our graduates from the Leadership Academy class of last. So now we're officially the class of last year.
Mm-hmm.
It hit home.
Yep.
Like it hit home that our class is now last year's class.
It's just how it works, man. Now we get to go to all the alumni events, and now we get to meet everybody else. As you know, now you and I can say something that a lot of realtors in our association aren't able to say, which is that we know somebody from every area of the state that we know well and can refer to, right?
Right.
I love the fact that I've got quality agents in my right pocket all the time.
Yeah. I got them as contacts in my phone.
Absolutely. It's nice just to be able to bounce ideas off people, like smart guys like you.
Yeah, you got it, man. So, hey, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap this up. We'll get an announcement out for the next event. We're going to, like I said, it's going to be a takeaway of that event, but we're also going to throw in some pretty cool topics too. I think I got a couple of things I'm working on, so stay tuned on that one, man.
Yeah, I'm going to bring you a list of at least 3 things that realtors do at these association events that people don't realize that make a big difference in their lives.
Yeah. We'll keep it clean.
Peace, man.
See you, man.